Evening, everybody. Alex here from LFIS. Thank you for joining me in another episode of our weekly macro overview series. There's plenty of news to cover this week, so we'll just jump straight in. Uh, the most significant news to come out this week is the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine. On Thursday, President Putin announced a special military operation in eastern Ukraine, and within hours of the announcement, the Russian military launched attacks across the country. The invasion has led to an international outcry against Russia, and several Western countries have imposed heavy sanctions on Russia, as well as pledging aid for Ukraine and its military. This includes thousands of weapons provided by the international community, the freezing of assets owned by prominent Russian politicians and businessmen, including Putin himself. Many of you may have heard that Roman Abramovich was forced to give up his stake in Chelsea Football Club to its largest charity shareholder. And finally, several economic sanctions, including most recently curbs against Russian access to SWIFT. SWIFT is a major payment messaging network that connects over 11,000 institutions and facilitates trillions of dollars in international transactions every day. Only one country in the past has been cut from SWIFT, which was Iran, and that resulted in the country losing 30% of its foreign trade. The invasion and the international reaction that followed has since led to a free fall in Russian financial markets. The MOEX index, the main ruble-denominated benchmark of the Russian stock market, fell more than 30% this week, and Gazprom, the state-backed oil and gas giant, fell by more than 35%. A few weeks ago, we looked at the fall in living standards that Russia has experienced over the past few years. Paired with decade-high inflation in the wake of the pandemic, the economic sanctions imposed could place severe pressure on the Putin administration. In the UK Consumer Confidence Index tanks in the wake of rising living costs. The index fell by 7 points to minus 26, which was recorded before the Russian invasion of Ukraine. The potential causes can be attributed to rising energy prices, which the invasion could further inflate, as well as plans to increase tax and bank rate hikes. Inflation is at its highest level in 30 years, standing at 5.5%, and as a result, consumers have cut their spending in half on non-essential goods. In the US, and more on the invasion of Ukraine, in response to the invasion, the Biden administration has inflated trade pressure with sanctions on the Russian financial sector. This includes the exclusion of Bank from the US financial system, Bank being the largest bank in Russia, accounting for a third of Russia's banking sector. The lender and 4 other financial institutions that were targeted by the US on Thursday oversee around $1 trillion in assets. However, the US stopped short of imposing such harsh restrictions on Gazprom Bank, Russia's third largest bank. The state-controlled lender is the main conduit for foreign payments for oil and gas. Cutting off Gazprom from dealing in US dollars would have significant repercussions for Europe, which relies heavily on Russia for its gas supply and oil supply. Also this week, Home Depot indicated that it expects gross profit margins to remain under severe pressure through the year as it spends aggressively to deal with supply chain bottlenecks and get building tools and materials to store shelves faster. The largest US home improvement retailer stock fell by as high as 8.3% to 6-month lows of $316.65. Home Depot's stock has risen about 50% since the end of February 2020, fueled by a more than $40 billion increase in sales as stranded Americans spent their time and money on do-it-yourself home projects. The margins are being pressured by several factors, including supply chain bottlenecks, labor cost increases, and other inflated costs that Home Depot are unable to fully pass through to customers. Finally, in Asia, Hong Kong launched a new round of financial handouts in the form of spending vouchers of exactly 10,000 Hong Kong dollars, which is equivalent to around 1,280 US dollars, to 6.6 million adult residents. This began as the city is struggling with COVID cases hitting record levels. Paul Chan, the finance secretary, said that the government would spend 54 billion of its 170 billion budget on anti-pandemic measures, including building new isolation facilities. He stated in his annual budget speech that fighting the epidemic is an overriding mission, adding that the economy would grow between 2% and 3.5% in Q1 of 2022 compared to the previous quarter. China's also said that the deficit would rise to 56 billion Hong Kong dollars for 2022 and 2023, accounting for 1.9% of GDP. Economists stated that the growth would be slow in the first quarter and that mandatory testing would affect labour productivity, with those who test positive placed in isolation. Kevin Lai, chief economist at Asia excluding Japan and Daiwa Capital Markets, said that the city's economy is being sacrificed as billions are being spent combating rising cases. Iris Pang, chief economist at Greater China at ING, said that lockdown could reduce long-term costs and possibly revive economic activities, and it might be worth doing so to cut losses in the future. And finally, home prices in China are expected to drop by 1% in the first half of 2022, but are expected to rebound later. For the full year, home prices are expected to rise by 2%. The chief economist at Hongta Securities discussed how the credit environment and regulatory policies on the real estate market have marginally eased since the beginning of 2022, and this is likely to raise home prices. Authorities have unveiled various measures to boost sales and sentiment, including giving developers easier access to escrowed pre-sale funds, requiring smaller down payments for first-time home buyers, and allowing commercial banks to lower mortgage rates. The People's Bank of China has urged banks to accelerate property loans in Shanghai, and in Guangzhou alone, at least 7 lenders, including China's 4 largest banks, have lowered their mortgage rates by 20 basis points. According to a chief economist at Pinpoint Asset Management, this cut is the most important change of policy in the property market in China this year so far. And there we have it for this week. So the question of the week is in relation to the ongoing developments between Russia and Ukraine. So much of the global economy is moving into a post-pandemic recovery phase, with inflation reaching multi-decade highs in the UK and US and unemployment continuing to fall. Do you believe that restraint should be shown towards Russia in imposing economic sanctions? Do let me know what your opinions are, and either myself or another viewer will get back to you. I'll see you next week, and bye for now.